Welcome to NQ80 Daily, and today we're talking Eric Cantona Day, 32 years since he signed for the club. I'm Ed with Wayne. How's he going?
I'm very happy. I'm in a great mood since this is the topic that we've decided to converse upon tonight. What a great subject. Eric Cantona, everybody's favourite, right? Your favourite? It's got to be your favourite, right?
Yeah, of course, because that's right in the middle of the time I went to the most football as possible for a single human to go to, or something like that. Yeah, I mean, I remember it very clearly because he signed. I was like, "Whoa, this is a bit interesting, isn't it?" Given that there was not nearly as much football on at that time, 92, there's still some intrigue to a player. It's not like, you pick some 16-year-old kid out of the Bulgarian third division and everyone's got a Y-Scout account and they go, okay, well, I don't like his analytics. As you would get today. He still had a bit of mystique to him. But I was very clear about him because I remember all the stories about him going on trial with Sheffield Wednesday and playing five-a-side football and calling the president of the French FA a shitbag. And all of that. So, it was exciting, and scoring a hat-trick in the Charity Shield for Leeds and all of that. And then I went to the first game. He played for United at Old Trafford. He came on as a sub. He gets the ball and pings this 60-yard crossfield ball. I was in South Stand at that time that season. I was like, bloody hell. Basically the first thing you did, I was like, oh, I like this guy already. What are your memories of Cantona Day?
Of Cantona Day itself, that's a good one. Not really much, to be honest, because compare it to the Andy Cole signing, right? When it happened late on an evening, and you could hear about it on the radio, but the first thing, and I did hear about that one on the radio, but the first thing most people would have heard about that would have been in the papers the day after. That's what it was. So I think the Cantona thing was the day after for me in the newspapers when the flashy foreigner and everything like that with Emily News. And the first impression I seem to remember of him wasn't anything to do with Cantona Day itself. I mean, looking back on the old videos, the VHSs, you can remember the lad outside saying they'll never sing "You Are Cantona" here. I remember, but these are retrospective memories, not actually on the day. My first vivid memory of Cantona, and it wasn't a thing like what you're talking about, like the past. It was, and I remember talking to Paul Parker about this because I was fascinated just by this one thing, is that he seemed so much taller than everybody else. And I couldn't work it out because we had players as tall as him, or players maybe 1 or 2 inches shorter, but he looked a good. Honestly, I'm not making this up, right? You can remember this. This isn't like,
he's got a presence. Yeah,
it was like his tall back, his posture, the way that he carried himself, but the way that he would sort of stand in the middle of the park as well, and he'd stand off the play, almost like, I'm going to join in now and I'm going to run things. But he'd stand off it, he'd watch what was going on and then decide to influence it, which is, like an artist choosing to interject or something, which is very much what Cantona was. And that's my first impression of him. Like you're saying there, and Ferguson came out with a great quote of when we played against Norwich. He said, it was a technical ability that Cantona brought, which was a massive difference to the team. And that's one thing. I just remember him looking like he was off a foot taller than everybody else. And he was such like a peacock in the middle of the pitch. And Ronaldo in his later years of his first stint was reminiscent in some respects. Zlatan as well had that ability about him. But it was a very, very surreal aura. And I remember that. And I remember it being so distinct because it wasn't there. And then it was. And to experience that it was jarring that it was so unusual the first sort of 3 months. And then you got used to it, and you just got used to it. And he wasn't the peacock, he was just Cantona, would stand up.
Yeah.
And sometimes so that's my first impression, is what was and what wasn't there, and then what was there and how supernatural it seemed to be. It was incredible. It was distinct.
I mean, I think a lot of different names for it these days. I mean, Aura, which the kids use these days, as we've talked about, or BDE, or peacocking, or just, the massive presence that he had, and obviously had a very immediate impact on the team, not just on the pitch, but just in terms of the presence with all the players in the squad at the time, right? So this is a team that had failed at the last moment the season before.
Yeah,
I mean, if you remember, like devastating draw at West Ham, and where else did we drop points in that running? But
defeat at West Ham.
Defeat at West Ham.
Defeat
at West Ham. Yeah,
you're getting your West Ham's mixed up.
I am, because there's later there was a draw at West Ham when Andy Cole missed a whole bunch, and Ludek McCloskey had McCloskey had the game of his life and saved 97 shots or whatever it was. Yeah. I was at both of those West Ham games, by the way. But yes, after that defeat the season before, they locked us in, and there were full cages at the time for hours upon hours, and you can imagine a bunch of extremely pissed off United fans locked in a cage for hours, having seen the title slip away yet again. So I mean, he'd come from Leeds, who'd won the title under Howard Wilkinson. Incredible that they let him go, but we kind of know some of the history there, don't we? That Wilkinson can go with him, basically. Not the first manager, would be the last manager, so not be able to cope with Cantona's presence. Although, actually, that's not quite true, is it? Because he fell out with the French national team after they lost out on qualification for the 1994 World Cup by losing at home to Bulgaria, if you remember that one as well.
And also, it should be noted, within the cavalcade of great stories about Fergie indulging him, there is still the Selhurst incident where Ferguson immediately thought he'd have to sack him. He was talked into keeping him, but I think by Maurice Watkins, who was the club solicitor, and just said, like, just wait to see what the FA did. To sort of take it out of United's hands in a way, or see what the FA advised. So even Ferguson at one point, I mean, there's the better stories of him fighting to keep him are there, and indulging him. They're there, but even Ferguson at one point, I thought, I can't do this again.
There's that amazing quote in Maurice Watkins' book where he relays Cantona's comments at the FA hearing, where he was told them to go shove it up their posterior. Oh no, he said shove it up your posterior, and then he said he'd spent the night with 2 prostitutes or something like that. And they just kind of ignored it. Many quotes in Watkins' book, I think, that are kind of interesting about United's history during that period. But I mean, Cantona Day is kind of, in a sense, the kind of the beginnings of the Cantona sort of fable. I've forgotten, in a sense, because of like all the amazing stuff he did over the next 5 years, winning titles for United, the failures in Europe, the incident at Selhurst Park, the fact that he retired so early, his impact and influence on the class of '92 and the development of Ferguson's great side through to the late '90s and all of that. So, but the thing that brought him here, I mean, the fabled story is that Leeds called up about Dennis Irwin. Fergie told them to fuck off and said, how about Cantona? And they're like, yeah, all right. And it was like one of the best value transfers in the history of football, I'd say, $1 million and whatever it was.
Well, definitely 1 million on the dot, because, and I love that as well. There's something about the story that I'm not quite sure about, and I've talked to Martin Edwards at length about it. I'm not quite sure. So obviously everybody knows that, most people know Alex Ferguson talked to Steve Bruce and Gary Pallister about him. There was also a story that Leeds had played Rangers in the European Cup, and Ferguson sat at that game at Ibrox alongside Gerard Houllier, and Houllier had intimated, because Houllier played a big part in getting into England in the first place, because he worked with Platini to find him a club, which is why he ended up at Leeds. But they found out, there was also ramifications of things that were happening with the French team at that time. So Houllier had sort of intimated to Ferguson. Now, because Houllier had good connections at Liverpool at the time, I do remember Paddy Barclay telling me that Houllier was reluctant to let anybody know before he passed away that he'd been responsible for kind of urging Ferguson to sign him. But the other one was Irving Scholar, who was the Monaco chairman for a long time, knew Martin Edwards quite well, because Irving Scholar also did some work with Spurs. He was on Spurs.
Yeah, he did. He was involved with Spurs, yeah.
So we're mentioning old white football mania people, so go back to your 80s Rothmans and find out all the the people that we're talking about. He was an influential director at these football clubs anyway, and he'd said to Martin Edwards over at dinner one time, like, Cantona would look good in the red of United. So these comments, said to all parties, were, I guess, triggering like the alarm bells when Leeds called. It was Bill Fotherby called to inquire about Dennis Irwin, wasn't it? So the story goes that Martin Edwards says that Ferguson was on the training ground, and he said, "Oh no, but what about Cantona?" And he said, "Oh yeah, actually, do you know what? There's something going on here. We'll get." I'm going to bore you with the full story of this, because it's from my book on Cantona, and it's been out a long enough time that I can do this without spoiling it, upsetting anyone. Have you got it on there?
I don't have it.
Oh, you don't have it? Oh, I can tell you the story.
I thought I did.
So you might not be familiar with some of the details of this. So that story, obviously, the that part of who initiated that, was it Ferguson or was it Edwards? I'm never quite sure. Edwards said it was him, and that makes sense that Ferguson wouldn't be there rather than the convenience of him being there and writing the name down. However, Ferguson never strayed away from that, so I've got no reason to disbelieve that either. Either way, the counter offer was made, Cantona. The funny part of it was that Leeds had only just, everyone thinks that Leeds signed him in the January. They didn't. They signed him on loan in the January. They activated this transfer in the June, where they paid £1 million to Nimes for him, and on name if you don't pronounce the S. So his contract's only just been made official in the June or July. So in November, Leeds were looking to get rid of him. Like, this seemed like a good solution to them, actually, because Cantona had he'd actually submitted a transfer request. So the transfer was made permanent on the Thursday, right? Accelerated. Bid was accepted. Phone call made on Tuesday. Cantona and Ferguson meet on Wednesday. The deal's agreed. Everything's announced on Thursday. On the Monday, Cantona had sent in a fax request, transfer request by fax to Leeds, saying something like, "The salmon that idles its way downstream will never jump the waterfall." And he asked to move to Liverpool, Arsenal, or United, specifically those clubs. United were completely, I presume, unaware of this, because this was never mentioned in anything, apart from, like in United's accounts of it. Whether or not Ferguson was tipped off by the representatives, we don't know. But then when Fotherby, the Leeds chairman, said, "All right, we'll do the deal, but we want 1.6 million for him," Edwards went, "No, we're only going to pay $1 million." He said, "Go to 1.4. He says, "No, we're only going to pay $1 million. It's 1.2 million. You've got to let us have, like, I've got to save face. I've got to make a profit. He's still popular. I would want rid of him, but he's going to look bad if we don't at least turn a profit on him." So I'm not going above $1 million. Leeds knew at that point they had to get rid of him. He says, "Well, can we tell the fans it's 1.6 million? He said, "Edwards, you can tell them what you like. It doesn't really matter." So that's where the confusion of that fee, it's always been listed between 1.6 and 1.2, because who knows what Leeds told. I don't know exactly what they told the thing, but Edwards was adamant it's definitely £1 million. And when you think of number, I know you love your numbers, Ed, United were worth something like £50 million as a club when he signed. And then when he left, a year after, there was the B Sky B takeover bid for 623 million. Yeah. Has there ever been a player as influential as something like that? I know it coincided with a lot with the Premier League, but he was so bloody influential as a singular figure. It's incredible.
It's very hard to place a dollar, pound, euro, yen figure on the influence of one person. Same Ferguson, really. I mean, how much did he add to the value between the listing in 1991 on the stock exchange and when they were taking off, delisted in 2005 after the Glazers took over? I mean, that's a 600 and something million pound rise there, or between 2005 when the Glazers took over and the value we have now, which is north of $5 billion dollars, I should say. So I don't know, but Ferguson had a massive influence on that value because of the success. So did Cantona in terms of that growth in the 90s, for sure, right? They all contributed. None of them will have taken out as much as the Glazer family, whose total contribution to the takeover was 45 million. That was their personal investment. The rest of it was all leverage. Amazing what you can pull off. I have many stories like this, not just on football, but
back to Eric.
Let's go back to Eric. Yeah, back to Eric. Yes, he was when he got in trouble for kicking the hooligan at Crystal Palace in '95, and he was in court. He had to disclose his salary. He was on £5,000 a week before bonuses. What would he be paid today, Wayne? How many hundreds of thousands a week? It's just a money pumped into football, isn't it? But it's amazing. I mean, he probably left football having made money, but not so much money he couldn't do nothing for the rest of his life, I imagine.
He was literally as he kicked the fan the Monday before that. So we'd played Blackburn on the Sunday. He'd scored the winning goal. On the Monday, they went into negotiate a new contract, and they basically agreed everything. Cantona and his rep and Ferguson, they shook hands and said, "Oh, we'll just come back and we'll," that meeting was, are we all in agreement that we're going to carry on this agreement? And he said, "Yeah, well, we'll come back another time and do the numbers." So 2 days later, Cantona kicks the fan. They have the when everything kicked off with the suspension and all that. Obviously, there was a lingering threats that Cantona was going to go because, first of all, there were concerns it was a global ban or if it would be a European ban. Milan were lurking. They really wanted to buy him. They wanted to get rid of Bergkamp and replace him with Cantona. So to try and stop that from happening, once they realised United wanted to keep him, they offered him the contract in early May. They brought the contract back to the table, and Martin Edwards again. He told me a couple of great stories, and this is the other one. That they put the contract in front of him, and like you said, he was on 5, so they offered him 10. They wanted Cantona's reps wanted 20 because that's the way that football was going. It was exponentially growing. Ravanelli a year later signed for, is it 50 grand a week? Was it? It
right,
was 50, 40 or 50, wasn't it? It was something. It was 40 because I think Keane was the first 50 grand a week player, or at least for United. So they put the contract in front of him, and it was kind of like, well, it's 10 grand, but if you win a league title, then you'll get what you're asking for. But you've got to win the league title for that. And they represent, I think it was Bertrand, the rep. He's going, no, we're not going to agree to that because he's the biggest player in England and he wants a salary that will reflect it. And Edwards is like, no, this is reflective of the gamble that we're taking. Besides how many league titles do you think we'll win over the next 3 years? Do you not think we'll win them, Eric? And Eric was so pissed off by this. He was like, yeah, we'll win them. He said, well, how many out of 3 titles do you think we'll win? And Cantona was holding 3 fingers up. He's like, it's 3 fingers. He's like, well, so basically just by insulting his pride, he got the deal that worked out. So Cantona's like, yeah, sign. And unfortunately only won, was it 2? We won 2 more with him.
Yeah,
so he retired before the end of the 3rd one. I love that it wouldn't happen now. You wouldn't be able to sting a player's pride into sort of signing for off for what he said he was going to do. But he was that's the romance of Cantona, right? There's individuality of him. Like he did something that's so that you'd expect a movie star to do. He was good, wasn't he? Sorry to swear. I nearly swore loads of times the other day. But
it's my effect on you. Yeah, I mean, I have a filthy mouth, so I'm clearly rubbing off on you. Finally,
do we have? Because we can't not talk about Cantona without having our favourite goal of Cantona's. So,
oh my god, favourite goal. There was the long range effort at Old Trafford versus Arsenal.
Oh yeah,
and in the season where we came back against Newcastle, I guess there's a goal at Newcastle as well. There's the 96 final goal, just because against the Scousers, and he hit it in the only possible place he could have hit it to score that goal.
Yeah.
There's obviously there's the ridiculous one at Selhurst Park against Palace on the volley.
Wimbledon.
Wimbledon. Yeah.
Because they played in red, they'll throw you off on that. That's possibly my favourite. Also, what
that
about
might
the
be
one
my
at
favourite?
Bramall Lane against the wind? They've knocked down the stand, so the stand that's got the TV camera on isn't there. The wind that's gusting around Bramall Lane is unbelievable. And if you watch that game, if you watch the goal, it doesn't seem like he's chipping it against the wind. You have to watch like 10 minutes of the game to appreciate. I'm sure you recall what I'm talking about. But the chip in, it doesn't seem. It feels like the wind changes just to take it in. It's unbelievable. The pass from, I think it's Giggs, like it's just on the edge of the box, Cantona, and it's almost like Cantona is the orchestrator of, I don't know, the ecosystem. Because everything slows down and he goes, oh, right, okay, now I'm going to chip this in and there's no adverse weather conditions to stop me because it just floats in naturally. It's unbelievable, that goal. If you, people talk about the Sunderland one and you've just rattled off 10 just about there and that's not even on the list. But there were things that he did like the Wimbledon one, like the Sheffield United chip, which just seemed like no other player could score them. And that's the thing that set him apart. Is there been a player that we've had since then that could score? Rooney perhaps could score.
Yeah, Rooney could have done some of that. The delicate touch was not Ronaldo's thing, but yeah, Rooney could definitely do it. Yeah. All right, well, that's a short version of maybe some more to come, Wayne. We're not quite ready to announce it, but working on some content. And just thought we'd mark 32 years. I mean, if anything's going to make you feel old, bloody hell. Also means it's, I know I've told this story a bunch of times, so I won't over-egg it. It would be 12 years since I met him, I guess. It would have been autumn of 2012. So
I had one meeting with Eric when he released this thing, which I'm not going to show you images from because some of them are quite X-rated. This, notebook, which he signed. It was great. It must have been 2016 because I had a copy of my book, You Can't Win Anything with Kids, which I gave to him. I don't think he will have read it. But when I released my biography of Cantona, he did a thing with a sports company, like Sports Direct for New Year's, maybe last year or the year before, where it was like, come to Cantona's house, come to Cantona's crib and we'll all celebrate New Year's. And the sports manufacturing company, I can't remember who it was, but they bought loads of copies of my book and they put it all over his crib. I didn't get told about this until my wife saw it on Cantona's Instagram and said, Wayne, your book's all over things. So I was like, oh my gosh, why wasn't I invited? How's my book there? But I'm not, because they invited loads of people. They did a big social promo on it. The bloody gets, but yeah.
And you didn't get invited. What did you do with all the books? Firewood?
It's out of print
paper
now.
during the Yeah, those shortages. No.
I don't know. He's probably selling them on Amazon for like 30 quid a copy. Like
I see. He signs them. He can triple the price. Yeah.
That's where he's making his money post retirement, selling copies of my book.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm sure that's what he's doing.
Well, there you go. All of Eric's success down to Wayne, where he knew it was true. All right, little tour through Cantona just to mark Cantona Day. Thank you very much, everyone. Catch you soon.